Well, let's get straight to it. Welcome to the programme this morning, Minister. So it's crucial for people to know this morning whether or not Iran's missiles came close to hitting the British base Diego Garcia. How far did the missiles get?
Well, our assessment is that the Iranians certainly targeted Diego Garcia. As we understand it, one missile fell short, failed. The other was intercepted and prevented. But I don't think it's a surprise this has happened. Iran has been recklessly firing missiles around the region. I think something landed in Turkey, another in Iran. We know what's been going on with the Gulf nations. It's why the UK is taking part in the collective defence alongside our allies to protect British interests, British nationals and our allies across the region.
But the detail of this is absolutely crucial here. So Diego Garcia, the base, is just shy of 4,000 kilometres from Iran. London is just shy of 5,000. So you say the missile fell short. How short?
Well, I can't share with you operational details like that. It would help only the Iranians if I were to do that. The point here is they didn't hit Diego Garcia. We have the capabilities on the ground to intercept and prevent what they are doing.
The point here, though, is for people waking up this morning, is they will have seen the headlines and many of them will have read this quote. And I want to show this to everybody. This is an on-the-record quote from the Israeli Defense Forces, our allies. The Iranian terrorist regime poses a global threat with missiles that can reach London, Paris or Berlin. Is that true?
There is no specific assessment that the Iranians are targeting the UK, or even could if they wanted to. We have the finest military in the world. We are perfectly capable of protecting this country and keeping this country safe, whether it's here at home or whether it's our assets and nationals across the region. Well, you'd need to speak to the Israelis. You know, whatever people might say, the UK is not going to be dragged into this war, but we will take appropriate collective defensive action to keep our nationals and our interests safe.
But Secretary of State, everyone watching this morning will want to know, are you saying that it is not true that Iran could hit European capitals, Paris, Berlin, London?
I'm not aware of any assessment at all that they are even trying to target Europe, let alone that they could if they tried. But even if they did, we have the necessary military capability to defend this country, and defending the British national interest is precisely why we're taking part in collective defensive action across the Middle East. But whatever people might say, whatever speculation there might be, this country will not be dragged into this war.
But Secretary of State, that's not speculation. That is an on-the-record statement from one of our allies. If that is not true, which is what you're saying...
It was very much conditional, the language that he used there. He used a could. There is no assessment to substantiate what's being said.
So why would Israel say something that is not true?
Well, you'll need to ask the Israelis why they're commenting in the way that they are. I can sit here and I can speak for the UK government, but the Prime Minister's been crystal clear all the way through. The UK is not joining this war. The UK will not be dragged into this war, not by any speculation, not by anything else. What we will do, this point's quite important though, we will work with our allies to seek to de-escalate this situation, because the best way to keep the British national interest secure is to get this conflict bring this conflict to an end as quickly as possible.
Forgive me for pressing on this point, though, but this is so important because the headlines this morning, what the Israelis have said, what people will have seen in their papers, what will have popped up on their phones, what we've been reporting here at the BBC, is a statement from one of our allies that missiles could hit European capitals and could hit this country. Now, you've told us this morning you don't think that's true, but in order to further reassure people, can you tell us how far those missiles really got?
You can't expect anybody to come here and talk about the operational capabilities.
Well, the Defence Secretary told us a few weeks ago something had come within 300 yards of British troops in Cyprus, so he did just a few weeks ago.
And the Iranians are behaving incredibly recklessly at the moment, firing missiles around the whole region. Our interest is in providing necessary capabilities to take part in collective defence of British nationals and British interests. in the region and around the globe, but also to work with our allies to de-escalate this situation, because the sooner we can bring this war to an end, the sooner we can get back to talking and negotiating, the better off people will be, both from attacks but also in terms of the security of our economy.
In terms, though, of your efforts to de-escalate and your wish not to be pulled into a wider war, doesn't really appear to be working, does it? You know, Iran has tried to hit our military base directly, as we've been discussing. There was an attack on our base in Cyprus. The MOD sources now say the UK has downed over 50 drones. The UK has now given America permission to use its bases to protect the Strait of Hormuz, as well as going after missile launch sites in Iran. That's not de-escalation.
Well, as part
Isn't
of
it
our,
exactly what your critics say, a slippery slope?
As part of our defensive actions, it's necessary to adapt to the new targets that the Iranians are focusing on. That's the
so
right.
That's not de-escalating.
That is the right thing
that.
to do. The decision about allowing the US to use our bases that was taken a day or so ago is in line with the original decisions that we took and in line with our assessment of international law. We are not going to be dragged into this war. We will not see this country dragged into this war.
But if Iran...
We will take all necessary action to defend our interests. That is why we had those Tornado fighter jets, the Merlin and Wildcat helicopters, the hundreds of additional military personnel all in the region before this conflict even began. We were prepared. We have one of the finest militaries in the world.
But Secretary of State, our involvement is increasing in this. We are getting more involved, whether you like it or not. Our AF jets have been shooting down more drones. We are now giving the Americans additional permission to do more. That may be the right thing. It may be the wrong thing. People watching this morning will judge. But you surely can't sit there this morning and say, oh, we're not getting dragged into a wider war, where our involvement has been growing day by day.
If you take the decision, as any British government should, that we will defend British people and British assets across the region, and the Iranians start targeting different assets, then of course we have to respond to that and defend them as well. That doesn't take away one iota from our interest and focus on de-escalation. And we're talking to our allies about that. We're talking to the United States about that as well. The best way that we can protect people is to bring this conflict to a close as quickly as we can.
Isn't it time for a vote in Parliament on what the UK is doing?
Well, it would be unprecedented to call a vote in Parliament on defending British people and British assets. That is why we have security apparatus in place.
I remember back in the day interviewing...
The UK did not take part in the initial offensive action because we didn't see that there was the legal basis for the UK to participate. There is no precedent for a vote in Parliament for defending British people.
Someone wanted there to be a precedent. He was called Keir Starmer when he was running for the leadership of the Labour Party. Back then, I remember very clearly, he sat in an interview and said, if I'm leader, there'll always be a vote on any military action.
I don't think at any point the Prime Minister has believed that there should be a vote on defending British people who are under attack from a hostile state.
Where's HMS Dragon?
HMS Dragon will be on its way to the region. What happened there
so it's still not
is
there.
that it was undergoing a 6-week refit that was completed in 6 days instead, thanks to the fantastic capability of our Navy doing what they're intended to do, and that ship is now on its way to the region.
But it's still not in Cyprus, let's just be clear, it's still not there.
To join the hundreds of additional personnel, the Typhoon fighter jets, the Merlin and Wildcat helicopters that were already stationed in the region before the conflict even began. The UK was fully prepared with resources there to defend our interests in case this conflict started, and indeed it did start. Now our focus is on de-escalation. Let's
now talk about what's happening here at home. Of course, everyone watching is worried about bills. They've already seen petrol prices go up. Your cost of living czar, Richard Walker, who Nick mentioned a few minutes ago, said you should look at capping the profits of energy companies. Would you consider doing that?
Well, the government is taking action on bills. Your opening line there. In a week and a half, when we get to April, the average household energy bill will go down by £120 on average, and that's locked in for 3 months, regardless of what's happening in the Middle East.
But if prices go up, which everyone expects to happen, would you think about capping energy companies'
people
profits?
are going to see their bills go down. There's no need to cap. Their bills will go down because of the action we took.
But would you look at capping energy companies' profits if we see what happened around the time of Ukraine?
The government will take what action is necessary. When we saw heating oil spike the costs of that. The government stepped in with £53 million to support vulnerable households when that happened. We're monitoring this, believe me, hour by hour, and as intervention is required, the government is making appropriate interventions, but we're already focusing on keeping bills down. Bills will go down a week and a half by £120 on average, regardless.
And we talked about that a lot last week with Ed Miliband, your colleague, the Energy Secretary, and there's a big meeting in Whitehall tomorrow with ministers and officials about what to do, and of course we'll watch closely what happens there. This, of course, comes at a time when political parties are heading into a big election campaign. There will be elections all around England, Scotland and Wales. It's going to be a huge political moment. With your plans as Communities Secretary, you want to make a big difference to local communities with funding communities directly. But the headwinds against you are so significant, aren't they? I mean, have you got any chance of turning your polls around?
Well, the situation is we can't, as a government, control the storms that may arise elsewhere in the planet. What we can do is make sure that we have a stable foundation for our economy so that we're best placed to weather those storms. So the fact that bills for energy will be going down by an average of £120 from in a week and a half when April begins, and that's locked in for 3 months, is because of the decisions this government took to stabilise the economy. So we've done the right thing there. Looking at the international situation, our focus is on protecting British people and British interests and working towards de-escalation. Here at home, we have to remain focused on the cost of living. That's why we're seeing those reductions in bills. It's why we're investing in more childcare. It's why we've increased the national minimum wage. It's why we've ended the two-child benefit cap to lift 500,000 children out of poverty. We are squarely focused on the cost of living, whatever is going on around the rest of the world.
But you are trying also to appeal to communities directly with what you're calling Pride in Place, this scheme where you're giving communities money directly. But many people feel so hard up and so worried. How's that going to make a difference?
Well, I won't repeat all of the measures I just went through that we're doing to put more money into people's pockets. But the Pride in Place programme, we announced last week an additional 40 areas that will benefit, taking the total number up to nearly 300 now. These are 300 of the most held back communities that were left sinking and struggling under the Conservatives. They're getting up to £20 million for each area, with local people deciding how that money will be spent. We've just had the first wave of responses back from communities about what they want to spend it on. Overwhelmingly, it's been high streets, because people are angry when they see their high streets deteriorating, boarded up, covered in graffiti. They want to put pride back. Now they've got the funding they need to do something to make their area better.
OK, Steve, we must leave it there today. There's so much to get through this morning, but thanks very much indeed for joining us.